Man who found a baby abandoned in the forest noticed an alarming detail: he found a baby in the park. While exercising, what he did next, I'm sure will break your heart. Becoming parents is really a unique opportunity to start a process of personal growth. In fact, we can consider fatherhood as one of the most sacred trades since the beginning of time, a trade in which being an apprentice with conscience is the highest aspiration, and in which the great masters are going to be our children and our inner voice, that voice that we hardly hear in the stressful everyday life of our lives, and with which we'll have to learn to contact. Paternity is a role in the life of human beings. It's a very important issue in our growth, and in today's story, we'll tell you how beautiful but marvelous it is to become a father. He never thought that that day in his life would change forever. He was a man who was in his 40s. He lived alone after a long divorce process, in which he had separated from his wife, with whom he had lived for more than 10 years. Both had decided to go their separate ways after constant fights and disagreements between them. After they had never been able to conceive a child, his ex-wife had currently remarried, and soon after she became pregnant. This was something that had always mortified Alfredo. Well, he felt that he had not been enough as a man, and as a husband. He'd always considered himself a healthy and good man. He'd never hurt his partner, and had kept fit despite his age because he loved playing sports, and every day he would go for a run in the park that surrounded the city where he lived. However, life doesn't always go as planned, and Alfredo had to adjust to his new life. But something incredible was about to happen to him, and one selfless act was going to change the course of his life forever. Like every day, he left at 7 in the morning. Alfredo headed to his morning run before leaving for work. His routine consisted of running 10 kilometers every day, and then going home to get ready for an endless day of work as an administrator. But that morning the man felt much more energy than usual, and sensed that something was about to happen that day. However, he wasn't sure what exactly was about to happen. When he got to his usual route, he noticed that everything was quieter than usual, and just when he was about to put on his headphones to avoid being distracted, he heard between the pews a cry. At first he thought of ignoring it, since he had only seen an animal, but then he heard it again. Something was definitely wrong, and he leaned closer to the noise to find out where the sob was coming from. What he found left him completely paralyzed and completely nervous. Among the different games that the park presented, wrapped in a blanket, was a small newborn baby. It was obvious that he was very weak, his color was unhealthy, and he was making a great effort to breathe. It was as if the little boy had spent the last energy he had to ask for help, and luckily Alfredo is in the right place and at the right time. Well, it turns out that the man very carefully wrapped up that creature so as not to harm it, and hurriedly went to the nearest hospital, praying that the little boy would survive long enough for him to be saved. When the emergency room found out about the baby's condition, they didn't hesitate to act quickly, and in turn, they also called the police to report the little boy who had been abandoned. Alfredo quickly got caught up in the legal mess of having found the boy. He was called to testify about it, and explain how it was possible that he had found it. At first he was one of the suspects, but that option was soon rolled out. The man was completely in shock. Yes, he was in shock for everything that was happening. He couldn't believe that someone would be so cruel as to abandon a newborn defenseless creature, and he couldn't help but think that the little one was alone, and without protection in the world. So as soon as he finished with the police, he went back to the hospital to ask about the baby's condition, but the news they gave him wasn't the best. No, the little one had not arrived in a good condition, so his lungs and other organs had been compromised. The doctors were doing their best to save him, but they didn't have much hope. Alfredo felt a great sorrow for that baby and felt how his heart was breaking little by little into 1,000 pieces, crumbling. He couldn't believe that someone who hadn't had a chance to live would die in a cold hospital, so he decided that he would do whatever he could to save that little boy. So instead of going for a run in the park like he did every morning, now his route would change. He went to the hospital to visit him, and after work he came back to see how he was doing. He also told the hospital that they put him as the child's emergency contact. In addition, he paid for all the medical expenses, so soon all the nurses and doctors in charge of the case knew him. They loved and respected him. Alfredo felt that he now had a reason to live. The little baby he soon affectionately named Eduardo, a very nice name that he loved and dazzled him in the first instance, and without a doubt there was no one braver than that little boy who clung to life day after day. A week passed like this. Little Eduardo's condition did not show much improvement. He was still very weak and connected to machines that allowed him to stay alive. Alfredo was heartbroken by all that situation that he was witnessing day by day, but he could only wait for himself to fight. Also, the Pole case became famous in the city, as many media outlets broadcasted on TV, so every day the hospital was visited by many people who came to give strength to the baby, and also to thank the great Alfredo for his noble action. However, the man kept thinking about the mother of that child, and what situation caused him to leave his son in that condition. Then one day Alfredo was entering that hospital very early and saw a young woman in a school uniform sitting on one of the benches in front of the building. She had a face of pain and anguish. Without a doubt the man knew that she was the mother of little Eduardo. Alfredo sat down next to her. He decided to talk to her, and he told her, "Now I can understand why you made that decision. You know what, I don't judge, you know, at any time, but I hope you know that you put the life of a completely innocent soul in danger. Hey, you must have felt very distress, but there are other options. If you want to see your son, I can take you to where he is. It's up to you." The young woman listened carefully, and then her voice cracking with tears, she said, "Thank you, mister. Thank you for saving my baby. I'm glad he had an angel when I left him there. It will fill my heart with regret for life, but I don't think I'm strong enough to face the consequences. I hope I can give the little boy a good life, because he deserves it." And then the girl went away, crying, and he never saw her again. Alfredo didn't tell anyone about that encounter, but something the young woman said had stuck in his mind. "I hope you can give the little one a good life." He never thought about what would happen if Eduardo recovered, and without a doubt adopting him was an option, but he didn't feel that he would be a good father. It wasn't until one day in the morning when the man received a call from the hospital. Alfredo thought it would be bad news, and he prepared himself to receive the worst, but everything was the opposite. The nurse who took care of little Eduardo at night and told him that the little one had begun to wake up somehow. He was breathing on his own, which was undoubtedly a good sign about the state of that baby. So without hesitating twice, Alfredo changed and went to see him. He was with him for the rest of the night, until the doctor arrived to inform him that Eduardo was out of danger, and that from then on everything would be in order. Alfredo felt a great peace, and the first time he was able to carry the little boy in his arms, he knew that he had made the decision that would change his life. He would adopt that little boy and raise him with much love, and would remind him every day how brave he was. It had been after going through a great test that life itself had put on him. Alfredo had to fill out many legal papers, and with the help of all the people who had seen him care for the little boy, he was able to adopt little Eduardo and take him home with him. They were difficult years, but they were also wonderful years in which man had to learn to be a father, but he was able to get through it all with love and dedication. Eduardo grew up filled with kindness, honesty, and courage. What tremendous values that dad had instilled in him. He knew his story, yes, he knew it perfectly, and he always thanked his father for giving him a second chance to live. The young man currently lived only a few hours from his childhood home, since he now had his own family which he had formed with the same values that his father had taught him. Alfredo had a new purpose in life, and that was to raise Eduardo, and now his life as an old man was full of happiness, as he had a daughter-in-law and grandchildren who loved him very much. It's easy to forget that the work of being father does not only fall on the people with whom we share, but on the people who love us and give everything for us. It's that simple, just as Alfredo gave it for his son Eduardo, who today is a great example of fatherhood, because there's no doubt that sometimes being a father is a decision made from the depths of the heart. Friends, we've reached the end of this story. I really hope you liked it.